Welcome to Living with Dr. Monica Shaw, where we discuss different ways of living our lives and finding fulfillment in a world that often pushes a single version of success, timeline, and identity. Living fully means honoring your truth, and charting our own path on a road less traveled can feel hard. Whether you've chosen a non-traditional life or life chose it for you, this show is here to support your journey and remind you that you're not alone. I am so happy to have Rachna Nivas as a guest today, and also as a friend and dance colleague. Rachna and I met last year, and we hit it off on so many levels. Rachna is a performing artist, choreographer, educator, community organizer, scholar, and activist of Indian classical art, a radical artist whose practice is both deeply protective of tradition, but also interrogative. Her work is rooted in feminine consciousness and Eastern philosophies that challenge Eurocentric cultural paradigms. She is co-founder and co-artistic director of Leela Dance Collective and is building her own solo body of work in a generative chapter of her artistic journey. As an educator and community organizer, Rachna also currently directs Leela New York's thriving training institution. She was also a recipient of the New York Public Library for Performing Arts Dance Research Fellowship and is currently an artist in residence at 92nd Street Y's Harkness Dance Center. On top of all this, Rachna has had a unique life journey and brings both wisdom and deep perspective to living, which I'm sure you'll find interesting. Enjoy. So I met Rachna at a friend's dance performance, and we just clicked. And when we met to just hang out months later, our conversation lasted for hours and hours. And where we talked about everything from adult friendships to women's liberation to love life to really everything. We talked about so many different things. And when that friend date was over, I knew two things. We were definitely going to be friends, and I needed to have her on this podcast. So thank you so much for being here, Rachna.
Thank you for having me.
So something that really struck me when we met that first time and we shared our whole lives with each other was that I've been thinking about a lot of these things, the ways that we are all kind of conditioned to believe that life should go, right? Like these are the steps. This is what you do. And what really struck me is that you, with all that messaging, you still kind of stepped out and decided to create your own path and really build anew. And I found that really, really empowering. You know, I say that because we do get these messages. We are really conditioned to see one way. And so I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about your story and just what brought you to this place in your life.
Sure. How far do you want me to go back?
As far as you want.
Well, I guess when I think about my story, and I've had a lot of time to think about it in this period in my life, I kind of want to go back even to my childhood. I was born in the US. My parents are immigrants. My dad moved to America in 1967, which was right after the passing of the 1965 Immigration Act. By President Lyndon Johnson during the Civil Rights Movement. And there was a lot of pressure on the government in general to reduce obstacles that are race-based for opportunity. And so meaning the Black Civil Rights Movement created an overall vibe that was to open more opportunities to people who didn't have melanin, you know? And so that act actually got rid of quotas that were in place in the US around immigration that put quotas on all countries except for European countries on how many people could immigrate to the US. And so it removed that. And so it's actually because of that act that my dad was able to come to the US, and he came on a special opportunity to do his graduate studies at UC Berkeley. So he went straight from a small town in North India to America, which was obviously a completely different time where these were like almost two planets. You know, and went straight into Berkeley, which was in the middle of the civil rights movement, in the middle of Vietnam War protests, in the middle of the counterculture hippie movement. where protests were going on every day in Berkeley. He eventually went back to India, got married, and brought my mom. And my mom was pursuing her PhD in physics, the only woman in her entire class at the time, and was a very, very feisty, no nonsense, really quite powerful woman already in terms of how she thought of the world and in terms of how unconventionally she thought of things. And in terms of how she pushed back all the time on what was the norm, on how women were seen at that time. She questioned that. And later I've heard these stories, and this does, I think, very much pertain to the path that I ended up taking, was that my grandparents were on both sides activists. My paternal grandfather gave up his business and his job, his conventional job, which is definitely a theme of this question, and joined the Quit India movement and became a freedom fighter against the British. And he went to jail for protesting and shared with, I think it was Nehru, who became the first prime minister. Wow. And he also did a lot of his activism with Gandhi's nephew. And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, his wife, she, in the 1920s, when they got married, she refused a dowry. She refused to give a dowry. She refused to wear a veil during the wedding, which is totally unheard of in the 1920s. So again, a lot of these things were coming up. My maternal grandparents, they were married, of course, back then. My grandmother was 16. She got married. But my grandfather made sure that she continued her studies after getting married, made sure that she got full college degree. And then when they were a young couple in a very small town, there was a very large Dalit community, who at the time were called untouchables. And they actually did enormous work to try to lift up that community. My grandmother taught the Dalit women to read, and my grandfather did a lot of work to build wells because they were not even allowed to drink water from the same place. So my grandfather did build wells. They started getting death threats. And then they ran away and,
That's amazing.
Yeah. And when my parents would tell me these stories, it always riled something in it. Always, not just that it made me think, oh, I want to do that. It actually made me feel like, oh, that makes sense. I feel very deeply connected somehow to this part in my blood. Which really goes into later, I think, because when I became a Kathak dancer, which I never ever planned or ever thought that would happen, but when that happened, so much of my work is to preserve and protect, in addition to innovating and evolving, but is to preserve and protect this tradition. I feel very connected to the ancestors, and that somehow this is one of my roles here on this earth is to keep this continuum. All of this stuff happened before I was ever around, right? So that's the other interesting thing.
You were hearing stories, but then
also
it's in your blood.
It's in my blood. So the stories kind of, I think, helped to spark something, which I didn't know what, right? But I think even as a kid, it was always, I had this kind of drive of advocating for things, more so than most of the people around me, even my other Indian American friends. I remember when the first time I saw henna tattoos on the street being sold, like these little kits were being sold. I walked out and I was like, what the hell is this? There's some guy in a tie-dye shirt, some white dude in a tie-dye shirt, like selling it. And I remember, this is before any word like cultural appropriation existed. This is before any of that. I remember being very just annoyed, having a negative reaction to it.
And you were how old then?
19. I didn't have words to articulate what I was feeling, why I was feeling it. I just knew that I was annoyed by it. I knew that it bothered me and that something wasn't right. And I would try to express it with some of my other Indian American friends. Nobody felt the same way. Everybody was like, this is great. They were more like, just finally they're accepting some of our stuff, and which I totally get and I fully understand it. But I did feel kind of alone in feeling like there's something wrong here and that I'm going to talk about that. I want to speak out on that,
right. So you've kind of had this questioning, speaking out kind of impulse in you.
Yes.
It sounds like for quite some time.
Very much so. Very much so. And this really deep pride in my heritage
Right.
that was, and a lot of people have pride, but there was something like particularly burning for me that was really like, no, these aren't these the same people who made fun of me for this? Wait a minute. No, I don't buy this. It was this lack of authenticity, which is really interesting because coming to now what I do for a living, it is no surprise that right at that time, at the age of 20, was when I stepped into my Guruji's class for the first time. It completely just blew my mind, the whole thing. Of course, I was, like I said, I was very proud of my heritage. And it was the 90s, the Indian organization at Berkeley was very active. And we had our big culture shows every year that I was very proud to be a part of. And all of us were. All of us were. This was pre-Bollywood, by the way, just a side note, just to paint the full picture, because the dances and the pieces of the shows were all folk dances or classical dances. And not just that. That was where I learned about all the different cultures of South Asia. It's like, oh my God, there's a Gujarati folk dance. Now there's a Marathi fisherman dance happening. And all the people of these regions are putting these together.
Yeah.
Fully student run. I mean, these were really amazing, high quality shows. So it was really rich. There was even like it was 90s. So there was a hip hop piece talking about we were young, brown, and proud.
Yeah. So it sounds like there was this passion in you. There was something that was already there, and it was able to come out in these different contexts.
Yes.
Yeah.
The pride thing, definitely. I was able to really, really step into that.
Yeah. And then you had that pride, that passion, and you also had this questioning, speaking out impulse in you. It's interesting because it seems like those two things together actually helped you to lead the life that you're living now.
For sure. I mean, I think they're what definitely helped me, but I think it's the reason. I don't know where it came from.
We do get a lot of messages around this is the way, these are the components of life, this is the timeline, this is the procedure for happiness, for success, whatever that means.
Yes.
And we get all these messages, so people tend to follow along a particular way of living. This comes up when I speak to clients, friends, and people choosing careers or following paths because of things that their parents have said, things that they just implicitly received from society about what's a good life,
Right.
And the arts sometimes is not in that category, right?
Definitely not in the South Asian American, I would say, community.
Not a safe life.
It's not a safe life. Yeah, for sure. I mean, because I was also leading that conventional path. I didn't do pre-med. I took a few pre-med classes, but I was like, no. Not because I didn't like biology. I actually didn't like how conventional the energy.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't want to spend my entire 20s doing this and then come out being bitter. I felt that way, I mean, this is no disrespect to any doctors at all whatsoever. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But so I was majoring in molecular environmental biology and then I was minoring in South Asian studies.
Yes. I also did a minor in South Asian studies.
Okay. We did not have each other. I love that. So that's what was happening. And one day, a friend of mine, it was a new friend of mine, and she was talking about how she studies Kathak. And I knew about Kathak dance. I had seen it, and I'd always thought it was beautiful dance form. I always did, but I think it never really came to me in a way where I was like, oh, I really want to go and take it, And even then, I think I said, I've kind of always liked Kathak. But what drew me in to want to go to that class was the way she was talking about her teacher. It sounded like she was close to him. That just drew me in.
Yeah, that Guru Shishya student.
Without knowing what Guru Shishya Parampara is,
Yeah.
I'm literally, all the things I just described is what I am. I'm this proud Indian American and I'm awesome. You know what I mean? And so that drew me in. And I was like, okay, come check out a class. And I thought, just like most people do, even today, probably when they come to my class, let's go try this out.
I'm just going to do a
Let's
drop.
go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to drop in.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes. And I was all super into Bhangra and all that, meaning I thought I was like a pretty great dancer.
Like college dancing.
And then I walk into this.
Yes.
Where do I begin? First of all, the room was vibrating with electricity, where you're just like, you can hear it from outside and you can feel the intensity. You can feel it. And then I walk in and there are maybe 10 women all wearing kurtas, dripping in sweat. I had never seen women in kurtas dripping in sweat.
Yeah.
Not up until that.
Yeah. And were they doing the footwork?
They were doing footwork and they were looking forward. And what I mean by that is the level of focus, the lack of distraction that was generated in that room was really powerful, just intense,
Right.
Focused. And then there's this little man standing in the front.
Directing it all.
Yeah. And he was yelling, "Do or die." And I'm like,
I just came. What did I just step into?
And this was before my class. So it was like the advanced students, right? And I walk in and I sit down and I watch this man conduct this class where he's playing tabla 1 minute and the next minute he's walking up to a student and he's saying all kinds of provoking things, very provocative things he's saying that are questioning everything. They're questioning, how we think about the world, that challenge South Asians and the very conventional thinking of, all you want to do, you want to get a job, get married, have kids. That's it. Really? That's all you want? Which are all things that I thought.
Yeah.
But not had like someone really say them like that.
Right.
He was holding up a mirror to specific students and their own personality. And then he would suddenly like turn into Radha. And it's like the most feminine, and he's like very masculine. It's like I was shaking. Like I could put myself in the moment. I was literally just shaking.
Yeah. Wow.
And
so there was this like draw.
I could almost feel like my life was changing in that moment. And then he looks over to me and he's like, "Who are you?" Which was a really loaded question because it was like, "Who are you?" Like, first of all, like, who are you? But also like, who are you?
Yeah.
Do you even know?
Right.
And I think I didn't. I just didn't. And of course, I mean, rest is history, as I say it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, of course, I can talk about it more. But what I realized over time was that, yes, it was great that I had this pride. It was wonderful. I mean, and it was great that I wanted to do something about it. But I had so little knowledge of what I actually had pride in. Very little knowledge, right? I mean, just eating Indian food, wearing Indian clothes, nothing wrong. It's all beautiful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
But where does it go after this? Where do you take it from here? And what I saw in that room was, this is an India I never knew. This is not what I saw when I was going to India. This is Indian dance. This is so insanely physical and emotional and sensual. I didn't know how to use those words, but I just knew it was all of these things. It's so spiritual. It's everything in one. And I just knew that I wanted more of it. I just knew that I was hungry. I was very, very hungry for whatever that energy was. That also in particular, that this human being, meaning Amit Chitresh Das, who was leading the class, I wanted to absorb whatever he was offering.
There was just this draw, this pull.
It was a pull. It was a pull. And it was definitely nothing like I had ever seen or experienced before. It was definitely unconventional. It was definitely quite against the whole, now it's time to get a job. Now it's time to go to grad school. Now it's time to get married. Now, not that you can't do any of that also, but
it's not the common path.
Right.
And that's what I mean when I say these messages and this conditioning. That's what you do. This is the order of things. These are the components of life, the order, the components, the timeline, all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that isn't something that you were exposed to even, right?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. I mean,
in that way.
Again, I had all this other background of my grandparents being activists, my mother being a very, very strong woman who was constantly questioning and opposing things constantly throughout my childhood. I can think back to 100 different things that she said that were questioning patriarchy,
Mm-hmm.
even things that I wanted to do all the time. But still, society and conditioning is
Very strong.
very strong.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're like homeschooled, which I was not.
Protected from it all.
Yeah, exactly. Literally living under a rock.
Right. Living off the grid.
Yeah, living off the grid. And this is before there really was a grid.
Yeah. Right. Before we recognized that there was a grid.
Yeah. And I think also, even despite that, even if you're against the grain person, everybody wants peer acceptance. Everybody does. It's a very normal human thing. Why wouldn't you? It's your fellow humans.
Yeah. So on that,
Yeah.
it sounds like there was this draw, this pull,
Yeah.
this very strong pull towards this is what I want to be doing.
Well,
And
I was still fully planning
Right.
on doing that whole
doing all that.
life.
Yeah.
That was the plan. This was
Yeah.
just going to be this other thing that I do.
Right. I need to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to
And I want to do all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Which I did
Mhm.
for some time, meaning I finished my bachelor's degree. Then I got a job in public health and I was continuing to study and train in Kathak.
Yeah.
I joined the company, touring company over some time. All of it was happening in parallel. Started teaching, got married, and all of that was going on. And then I went to grad school in public health. So while I was doing that, the day after my graduation for my MPH, my guru called me and was like, basically wanted me to be the director of the institution that he had founded. And it was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a moment. That was a big moment. It was excitement and like, oh my God, the idea that I don't have to be splitting my time because by now I'm fully doing. So now I'm a teacher. I'm dancing in the company. I'm doing all the volunteer work that all of us artists do to like keep the art going, every possible job, right? And then there was even a time when I was working part-time and doing grad school, but now I'm like doing grad school full-time. And so now it's, do I look for a job now that I have this master's degree in my field?
Right. That's what you do.
That's what you do. Now I'm going to actually get paid more. That's the whole point, right? I'm going to have a higher salary.
Yeah.
Or do I go and do this thing that's a burning deep in my soul that's going to now allow me to not have this split mind of running from here and running from there, right? Going from my job, calling in sick because I'm going to do this performance.
To be immersed in
To be
this.
fully immersed.
Yeah.
But there was a conflict. There was a psychological conflict for sure. The conflict was, but you just be a dancer.
Right. Yeah.
Like, no. Like, I'm an educated person. I mean, this is how we think.
An identity.
It was an identity conflict.
Yeah.
There's also a very, very important thing around being self-sufficient, even though I'm married now, but still, like, because I would be taking a big pay cut, right?
You have to contribute in some way.
Yeah. And so I'm going to be, like making this much money?
Yeah.
Even though it wouldn't be an issue because of the partnership that I had. But still, it still was like my mom instilled really deep in me that it doesn't matter. Like, you should always be self-sufficient. Yeah.
Right.
And there is the thing of this is not a respectable career.
Even just what you said, how you phrased it, just a dancer.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Many people also think like that. They say that kind of thing,
Yeah.
And the arts are so valuable. And many people likely move away from their impulse as an artist because of these ideas of what it means to be an artist. You're going to be struggling. It's going to be inconsistent. It's not going to be doing enough in the world. It's not going to be contributing, right? There's a lot of these tropes around being an artist, and it can be challenging, and also it is a different path.
Yeah.
But that can really steer people away from even considering it.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people would jump at it if the financial piece is taken care of.
Yeah.
Because that's usually a very valid reason why you would not choose that, right? Because like you need to put food on the table. But my husband was actually very supportive. He was like, you should do it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And he even said that you have to try.
Yeah.
You have to at least try. And my parents, who are very progressive, as I've been mentioning, they really, really encouraged me my whole life to really follow my passions. They really did. And they championed that, which is why I got to do so many cool things and develop so many skills even when I was a kid and pursue so many different things. But they were concerned. They were concerned. And I think the biggest concern probably was I think for my mom was the financial piece, is to not be financially independent regardless. And I think probably for my dad, it was also the piece of like, you have more to offer. You have more to offer. So they were like, why don't you think about being a professor of dance?
Yes.
Because that's more palatable.
Yeah.
That's more like, oh, that's impressive. That's an intellectual thing that you can do.
Academia and the arts.
Academia, you're merging the two things, passions, And I'm like, well, maybe. I was honestly, I wasn't 100% sure. Like I said, it was an identity thing. But I will say that at the end of the day, when I decided to take it, there were a few things. One, it's like, well, nothing's permanent. You can always, the great thing is that I do have these degrees and I have experience in this field. I can always come back to it. It's my fallback. But the other thing that I think really sealed the deal for me was the idea that there are hundreds of thousands of people in this world that could do the public health work that I was doing. But there are literally like 10 people in the world who were being trained in this lineage at this level to carry it forward and to make an impact on society with this precious gem that's been handed to me like an heirloom, and it's in my hand. It's like a gem that's like sparkling in my hand.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it too, because many people could, have that grad school degree and then go do that work.
Yeah.
And you were both being given this gem, but also
I have the ability to accept it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
I really do believe that people have a unique set of skills and talents and capabilities.
Yes.
And you were being given the opportunity, but you also had those unique skills and talents to be able to offer.
Exactly. Actually, my husband was like, but you're really good at this, That's why you have to try it. Yeah, absolutely.
And many people, I imagine, would not make that decision to try it because of all of the external pressures and messaging and the fear, right?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what were some challenges that came up for you in choosing this path?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's all the regular ones of being an artist, right? Because choosing to be an artist, even if you're choosing to be a Western artist, is going against the grain.
Yes.
Right. But I was in the Bay Area. This is all happening in the Bay Area. I mean, talking to people, they look at you like you're an alien, literally. And not just that, people are subtly dismissing it.
In what ways?
Oh, are you still doing that dancing?
That dance thing?
That dance thing?
Yeah.
Finally one day I said to an Indian guy, like, closer to my age. And I was like, oh, are you still doing that doctor thing? I mean, but that's when I started gaining some sort of agency. Yes, around it more. But yeah, I would say this, if you put on top of the fact that I was trying to be an Indian classical dancer in America. And then on top of that, at that time, I have this male guru in my life who's like this very, very strong presence, which is really difficult, actually, where, I mean, aside from the fact that it was amazing to be around that level of excellence and that level of mastery every single day. I liken it to like if you're a basketball player and you spent 17 years with LeBron James every day, just like talking to him, learning from him, training with him, being at parties with him, traveling going on the road with him. Literally, that's what it was. What was the incredible thing? And it's what me and some of my other dance sisters, it's why we did it, right? And of course, I mean, he wasn't always the easiest person. And it was a pressure cooker and it was swim or drown. It was old school, tough love, but also, a very intimate relationship. He knew my husband, he knew my parents, you know what I mean? He was integrated into all of it. So it was very all encompassing, which has a lot of challenges. A lot of challenges. It can interfere with their marriage. It can interfere with family time. And that was a constant negotiation. I mean, my in-laws lived in the Bay Area too. But I would say the other challenges of just choosing this life, and I'm sure every artist knows this. I mean, the level of sacrifice that you have to make, the things you just get used to saying no. And I'm an extrovert. I always had so many friends. I loved hosting, loved having people over and all of that. But when you start to be on a mission, because my path has also been not just to be a dancer. It's been this larger mission of educating and uplifting, first and foremost, the South Asian community about this tradition, and as a whole, things that were birthed in our land that have been minimized and stolen from us. We were robbed of access. Indians were robbed of access to these arts during British colonization for 150 years. I mean, it was very deliberately disenfranchised. And so there's a reason why classical performances, whether it's music or dance, are not selling out like some Bollywood show, right? There's a reason for it. And I became very passionate, and it was also part of my Buddhist work, but that was one aspect that was very passionate for me, because when I found out about it, when I saw the art and I saw how much it entails and how exciting it is and how much it has to offer, I was mad. I was like, why didn't I know about this? Yeah. And why not others? Yeah. And why are we always looking to the West at everything being so great? And so that became a big part of the mission. Yeah, really big part of it. Yeah. And that's very challenging, because now you're taking on colonization. I'm fighting continued Western domination of ideas and thought and just the hegemony, right, of the West. And we're talking now, a lot of it is happening in the US. So it's this exploding diaspora, right, of immigrant community, now also having another second generation. And so you're fighting distance, right, because we're on a different continent of where this art was birthed. You're fighting now generational separation. And again, the continued dominant culture, which keeps coming.
So this was really kind of a way for you to bring the arts, your passion for this beautiful art form that you found, and your activism, right, which was also within you.
Yep.
And bridging those two together, really. It sounds
Exactly.
like there was kind of like a calling there.
Yeah. For sure.
Which, it's beautiful. And I'm so glad that you took that gem.
Yeah, I mean,
and it also sounds like it was hard, right? Like, to make that choice, it was going against the grain.
Yeah.
So to speak, right?
Yeah. And it was also in the Bay Area. It was such a beautiful, diverse place, but tech just took it over, right? Yeah. Infiltrated too much. And it was already, I would say, there was still a relatively more homogenous kind of, like, in terms of the field of work that people would go into. And the more and more that tech infiltrated, the harder and harder it was to be in an artistic sphere, not only resources wise, I would say in just mentality. I mean, everyone wants to talk about, well, you must be wanting to open more schools. I'm like, no, dude, that's not the point of this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't sound like there was also the arts infrastructure there to support you as an artist and not just a teacher.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That stuff is all, it's difficult.
Yes. There's this calling, this pull.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But then you come up against some very real logistical issues, systemic issues.
And then there's the race issue, even the white artistic community, and how you're trying to maintain the integrity of this form in a white dominant infrastructure, even for the art. Even the infrastructure that does exist is still a white dominant infrastructure.
Yes.
And then there, for example, there's the constant Orientalism, the othering, the exoticism. It's like, we'd do some crazy performance where we were like, again, dripping sweat, very technical,
very artistically sound.
9.5 beat time signature. We're like playing instruments and dancing at the same time. We're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And people will be like, at the end, my God, your costume was so colorful, right?
So shifting gears a bit, you moved to New York not too long ago. So tell us about that process.
Yeah. I mean, I had actually started coming to New York 10 years ago. I just had a feeling of wanting to spend some time here. I had just created my first original work. I was still dancing in my Buddhist company, but I was just starting to really come out on my own as an artist. Very beginnings. And New York really, I mean, whether it's your cup of tea or not, no one can deny the energy of this place. No one can deny how it stimulates you.
Artistically
Artistically
as well. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like it just like almost creates this creative rumbling inside of you, you know? And so I started coming here and just like, oh, let me teach a workshop, you know, just start to kind of see what the scene is like here. I did a small solo concert, you know, things like that. And I saw that there was just a lot of response and it really fed me, you know, in a way that the Bay Area was not. And even the way people are so entrepreneurial here about art, you know, scrappy. And this is pre-pandemic, you know, and everybody's just they're willing to come out. They're willing to have coffees with you. They're willing to talk about it. And it's like, whoa, this is night and day, you know? So it really started to become this thing that was, I would come here and get this like nourishment. Yeah. And then I'd go back and, you know, do this. And then my guru passed away in 2015. And on a personal level, definitely, you know, shifted things for me. On one hand, it was like, okay, well, now it's to us to carry it forward. And on the other hand, it also sort of opened, I would say, even though it was a difficult thing to go through, but at the same time, it also opened things in terms of what I'm going to create as an artist as well. And then on top of that, during all of this, I went through 10 years or more of fertility treatments, you know, with my husband. Well, I mean, we were both going through it, but I had to do all of the fun stuff, you know, multiple miscarriages, multiple failed IVFs. And it was, and also like still before a time where people were really, really going to therapy. It wasn't like the way it is now, you know?
Right.
So I think I would just keep throwing myself into work. Yeah. Every time there was something that was devastating, and
many people do.
And I didn't really deal with it too much because I also didn't want to be one of those women.
One of what?
You know, who obsess over it, desperately trying to have a kid.
Right.
Right. It's like, it's fine. You know, I have this amazing thing in my life, but it really is a really slow poison because coming back to the thing around what you are conditioned and also what we feel, but what you're really conditioned to believe is that is the definition of a woman, to be a mother. And to have to renegotiate that definition took a really big toll on me. Like it takes a lot out of you to have to do that alone.
Right. Yes.
I didn't have anybody to renegotiate that with. Nobody. I mean, as amazing as my mom is, and she wasn't pressuring me like, oh my God, when are you going to do it next? Nothing like that. But they, of course, still wanted to have potential. I mean, it's not like that's not clear, right?
Right. Also, probably in your peer group, that wasn't there.
I really didn't have it. I mean, it's no shade on anyone, but yes, it wasn't still. I mean, women can be really vicious, and you know, those who were getting pregnant, there was a lot of subliminal, difficult energy.
What?
Like pity, subtle parading.
What is that?
Subtle parading of how they got pregnant so easily. There's a, and that sounds really weird for today because I really do think this has really shifted. But even 10 years ago, it was not. Like even then, people who did IVF were still considered to be those couples.
Right. Yeah, it
We're
wasn't
still
as common.
Yeah. I mean, even my husband expressed later that someone would say something about somebody else doing IVF, right? Like, oh, well, his guys in work.
Yes. Right. Like disparaging of
subverting. Yeah. And it makes you go like this and internalized. And on top of that, I'm like pumping myself with all these hormones. I'm injecting myself with all kinds of stuff. I really did feel okay, to be honest. I didn't feel off, you know, at the time. I think becoming a mother is one aspect of your libido, is an aspect of your sexual power. It's an aspect of your creative power because you are literally birthing. You're literally creating life, right? So if you don't do that, which is fine, I mean, if you don't have one, but then it's going to be more intense, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that my desire to create was just like rising and rising and rising, almost almost like this exploding, because all of this energy, the uncontainable feminine energy that we are so blessed to be born with, it's a birthright for us to have this energy, it has to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's such an interesting way to think about it too, because then that means that that creative energy can go towards different things. It's not that the only route to being a woman who creates and who nurtures is through children.
Exactly. And again, this doesn't mean that mothers cannot create other things either.
No.
That's why I said uncontainable.
Yeah. And it's also doesn't take anything away from women who do have children. That's also amazing.
All of it is amazing. But that took a long time to come to.
Yeah. So what was your process like?
The thing that I've always been blessed for, or I don't know, I feel blessed about, is that the intuition is really coming. It's really always knocking. I hear the knocking.
Yeah.
I do hear it. The conditioning goes, come back later. Back later.
Yeah.
I'm busy.
Yeah.
It keeps knocking.
Yeah.
The conditioning is like,
don't listen to that.
But then I answer it sometimes. And so it's like little things.
You answer the intuition.
The intuition, and
what does that feel like? What does intuition feel like to you when you are hearing it knocking?
It's a deep question. It's funny that you asked that, because I'm in this totally different, like more evolved chapter in my spiritual practice, which is trying to distinguish and discern when it's intuition versus ego.
Yes.
Which is very refined work. But what does it feel like
for you?
It feels like something is misaligned. It feels like misalignment is even a word, even that's not a word I could have used then. It's angst. And it feels like this.
Yes. Like something's not right.
Something's not right. And I want to push against the thing that's making me feel not right.
Yes.
Whether it's somebody saying something out of pity, even if they mean well, or if it's something I see in society written, something that's very linear, very patriarchal, but that like, what? No, it just is like, I want to say, it feels like no.
Yeah.
It feels like no.
Yeah. No, but I think that's accurate, right? There's this feeling of, wait, no, this is a no. Yeah. This is a no feeling. And sometimes you don't really even know what the yes feeling is going to be until you say no.
That's right.
That is giving you the no feeling.
It's easier. The intuition, especially when you're in the more, I think, novice phases of discovering your intuition, it's much easier to feel what you don't like than what you do.
Yeah.
Because the thing that you are aligned with, most of the things that we as women are aligned with are not what we've been taught. Freedom, autonomy, agency, power, sensuality, understanding that our sexual energy is completely connected to our need for creativity.
Yeah.
It's very deeply connected. So I think a lot of that was stirring. My husband and I ended up separating after 23 years of being together, married for 17. It was the most excruciating pain that I ever knew possible. It was like losing your right arm, and it really is just a really, really dark thing to go through. And it's hard enough to even come to that decision. I mean, wait long time, because it's like deciding to cut off your arm. So there's that happened. And that was part of, so me moving to New York, part of it was starting a new chapter personally, but it was also why New York? Because that's the place where I feel the most alive. I feel that me as this creative is the most nourished. And when that is nourished, your soul feels nourished. And so I kind of did it all at once, moving away from all my loved ones. I mean, anyone that loves me and I love, I moved
from what you knew.
Everything I knew. I lived in the Bay Area my whole life and did it in my 40s. So it's also dealing with all of the age the massive, massive job that society does on us, especially women on age, but I think it does it on men too, but it's much more on women. And
that conditioning, that same conditioning around what you should and shouldn't do, what you can and can't do, what you know, at a certain age, right? Starting over in your 40s.
I mean, all I ever thought of constantly was I should have been doing this 10 years ago. If only I could have done this. But it's like, no, I mean, that's my path. And look at all the amazing things that I got in those 10 years. Yeah. In fact, that's what brought me to being able to do it in this way, in this, you know, with this kind of wisdom now. You know, but then it's like, oh, but I'm not going to look good anymore. And then no one's going to pay attention to me. I mean, that's a really tough one. And then it was coming to the realization that I'm always going to look good, you know?
Yeah.
It is a mindset and I care. If I care about that.
Right. And if you care about yourself.
Exactly.
Do things to nourish yourself.
Yeah. And you know, I may not look like I looked when I was that age or whatever.
Well, and also there is a certain unique strength and draw that comes with age.
Oh my God. Once you get to that, it took me a while. I mean, turning 40 was rough for me. But
right, because all this was happening too.
All of this was happening, and it's like, what's going to happen? And then the idea of, oh, I'm going to lose my sex appeal, and all of these things that I actually rely on for my femininity and my idea of it. But once I kind of really started to feel what you're what you're saying, that actually this wisdom is sexy.
Yeah,
you know,
yes, owning parts of you and wisdom and with yourself, but also others in the world. Like it just feels different. And that emanates, I think.
Absolutely. It radiates, you know? So that's some of the stuff that brought me to New York. And yeah, I've been in this chapter of, part of it is like my dark feminine, which is really being and owning what you are in alignment with. That's really what that is.
Yeah. And that's that intuition.
That's the intuition.
That led you there.
Yes. It was instinct. And,
yes.
You know, all of that led me there.
Knocks on the door, responding to those.
Having the courage to respond to those. Yes. I'm so grateful. I don't know where that courage came from. I really don't. Like, I don't surround and go, oh, I'm so brave. I don't know where it came from. I think we are born with certain resilience based on perhaps, you know, what we're, you know, here on this earth for. Priyanka Chopra recently said this. I don't normally like quote her, but she said something really important that resonated really deeply with me because I feel the same way about my childhood. She said, I was cherished. And I was like, that is such an amazing word to use.
Yeah.
Because I feel that I was so cherished by my parents and that in the past that's made me insecure because it gets labeled as being spoiled. And I actually, when I look back, I don't even see that it being necessarily spoiled because it's not that I felt entitled. It's not that I didn't get taught hard work. It's not that I didn't get taught to respect my elders or, you know, everything around me. Because that's what I actually think is spoiled when you're just totally out of touch. I was showered with this idea that I'm a cherished human being. That makes you believe that anything is possible.
Yeah. If you are given that love and security, then you can go out and explore different things and know that you will still be cherished, right?
Exactly.
You will still be loved. You will
Exactly.
still be safe.
Yes. And that I think that feeling of being cherished and being loved, if you have it in your childhood, it translates and transcends to being you cherishing yourself and you believing that you're always going to be loved by the universe.
Yeah. And to be able to take certain risks.
The risk taking is big. And I definitely feel I've been willing to take really scary risks. So grateful for taking that risk of coming to New York. I can't even, I mean, it's been definitely a roller coaster and a journey. It's only been 4 years I moved here during the pandemic still.
Yeah.
And it's been like, I would say the most lonely time of my life, yet the most enlightening.
Yeah.
It's been the most excruciating pain of my life and the most exponential growth I have ever had, you know. And yes, I know you hear these things that, oh, no pain, no gain, and like all this stuff, although I prefer the no agony, no ecstasy. But it's one thing to hear it, and it's another thing to really go through that. And every time I get through something, it's like the level of resilience that you are aware that you are gaining from that last thing that you just went through, you know, is just like you feel unstoppable. You feel indestructible.
Yeah, it feeds in. It's a
Yeah,
it's a bit of a cycle then.
totally.
Really.
And it's growing, you know, and I think there's a growing a- awakening right now of badass women choosing to stay single, you know,
Yeah.
and not to say that, I mean, I actually believe in partnership and I do need the polarity of masculine and feminine energies, but I've only realized all this because I'm on my own.
Through being alone.
Decentering men has helped me realize that I do want a man, but from a very much more wise, intentional place, and understanding a lot more of why I do the things I do, why I want the things I want, having way less and continuing to disintegrate shame around any of my desires and needs.
Yeah. Right.
You
You're
know?
choosing it for you.
Right.
It's because it's something that you are choosing, not something that you have been told you should choose.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's an amazing thing. And being in your 40s is, woo, it's spectacular.
Yeah.
I think we might have talked about this once, but I read that in indigenous cultures, they don't even consider women under 40. When you're in your 40s, you're actually just beginning. You're just beginning. And it's like women in their 50s and 60s are the ones who are the revered. They represent the most revered embodiment of the human experience. And when I was in Mexico City and I was in some store that had all kinds of indigenous artifacts. There was like a really huge, big, tall totem pole. And the woman at the store was telling me, she's like, oh, you can tell that this is what was outside an older woman's house. Because the more wise you are, the older you are as a woman, the higher your totem pole is. And so that's who everybody goes to for counsel. Yeah. And I'm like, well, women like that are discarded in our society.
Right.
They're discarded. They're invisible. So much knowledge, so much wisdom, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, now that I'm in my 40s, that completely makes sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, I think you come to a point where you start to really put aside the societal conditioning. I mean, not everybody, of course, right?
Right.
It depends on like your circumstances. But I found for myself and for many women I know in their 40s, there's this, it really is like a coming into yourself and knowing and identifying who you are, going based off of that rather than all of the questioning and the, you're starting to like see self-doubt for what it is, which is a farce.
Yeah. The self-doubt. When the self-doubt starts to melt away, what's underneath is so overwhelmingly powerful.
So much power.
In fact, I sometimes have moments these days where something that I had self-doubt about suddenly just, I can like feel its final residue just finally, it's like the end of the candle just gone. And I just burst into tears because of how powerful I feel.
I can imagine the tears and I don't know if sadness is the right word or emotion. Wow, there's been this weight on me for so long. And now it's gone. It's finally dissipated.
Yes.
That's so powerful.
Well, I think it's the meet your soul thing and meeting your mind. It's like all of a sudden they become one as opposed to being in conflict with each other.
Right. Recognizing actually your true power that's been there all along.
Yeah.
It was covered
Yeah.
by the self-doubt, the conditioning. I mean, even what you described earlier, like the intuition, is knocking on the door and the conditioning is on top of it, right? It's saying, no, just put that aside. Just ignore that. And I think that's the process many find themselves in, right? Where the conditioning or the fear or whatever those barriers are,
Yeah.
preventing them from acting on or even answering the door, right? Acting on those impulses.
Yeah. And if you're disconnected from your body,
Mm.
you may not, we're really lucky to dance.
Actually, that's very true. Yeah.
And that's the other thing I didn't mention about dance. Like when you start moving your body, dance has this other dimension where you're actually translating the expression of, you're translating your soul's intuition into
Yes.
movement,
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, listening to even those impulses of
Yeah.
your intuition and your body.
And it activates it.
Yeah.
It activates it. It actually does. I tell my students a lot of times, I'll be like, I'm kind of screwing you guys because the more that you dance, the more you're going to question things in your life. And it may piss people off around you because, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry,
Yeah.
because it happens. It just, it activates.
So, wrapping up, do you have any final thoughts, lessons learned for anyone who might be considering going against the grain or starting to, who's on a path that looks different than what they're seeing?
Yeah, I think the fact that that's already kind of coming up for you means that there's a desire. And if that desire is there, then really, really nurture that desire. Have so much compassion for it. That desires are, something that I think there's a lot of language used in a lot of like religious and even spiritual lessons is that the desire is bad.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah, right. It's selfish in some way.
It's selfish. But the thing is that it is completely natural and human to have a desire. I think that really, really nurturing and nourishing your desire, listening to it, writing it down. This is what you actually want, even if it's crazy, even if it's completely against anything that anyone has ever told you, and really believe in the fact that you having that desire means that it's possible. You cannot have a desire if it's not possible. You just won't. And you have to be your own champion. This is the other thing. It's not that you shouldn't have allies, and that's the third thing I would say. But before that, you have to be your own champion. You can't be like, I have this desire, but let me see from other people. Let me check if this is crazy. Is it okay? Don't ask other people about whether your desire is crazy because everyone's going to think it's crazy. And that's going to discourage you.
And when it's a budding desire, when it's something that feels newer, then it can be very easy to be swayed away from it, right? So other people's doubts, other people's fears for you or for themselves get projected onto you, and then you internalize them, right?
Exactly.
And then you start to believe them that actually, no, that's not really a good idea. No, I shouldn't do that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the only person who should sway you away from your desire is you. Like, you're allowed to change your mind.
That's true.
You're even allowed to have a desire, go for it, get it, and then say, I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you are completely allowed. But I think the thing that trips us up is this, is the coming back to self-doubt
and the messages and the different voices that we hear that make us do or not do certain things.
Exactly. And it's easier said than done. Don't have self-doubt. No.
Right.
So basically it's more that, yes, don't share. Actually keep some things quiet and private.
Yeah. And maybe be mindful of who you're sharing what with.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Write it down instead, that's the best. And because if you write it down and you start to put it into the ether and don't completely obsess over it, right? Like, don't spreadsheet your desires. Don't spreadsheet. Your spreadsheet is for really tactical, really, really specific downstream stuff. Like, not around how this is all going to pan out.
Like the 5-year, 10-year plan for your desire, for your thing that you want to do.
Exactly. Exactly. I actually
Yeah.
honestly don't think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. And I definitely have that tendency myself. Okay, but how is it going to happen? When is it, just kind of figure it out and plan and all that. And
Yeah.
it's true when I've not done that as much and I've just been like, do this. I'm just going to try this. Things kind of happen and in a way that you can't even predict.
Things start to come and your ideas of how come, right? If you put it down and like that starts to just come, and that's also where the allies come in, where like your best friend may not be your ally for this right now, but other allies will come.
Yeah.
If you decide that, and yes, I'm not saying like, oh, don't go after that at all. But again, the ideas for how you're going to go after that. Yeah. Starts to come if you really believe in its possibility. The thing you have to work on the most is your belief in its possibility.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Cause you just, I don't know. It's not possible.
If you start taking those steps and walking that path, then just try walking the path and then see what comes up. And you don't have to plan it all out and you can't even plan it all out from where you're standing at the beginning of the path.
Actually, your plan is deterring you.
Yes.
Your plan is actually blocking you.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, which I know is going to be really hard to hear.
It's also limiting you because it's coming from like your current state of mind and everything you know right now. Whereas when you start walking that path, then you will learn more things. You will grow. You will start to think in different ways.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. Because your own growth is necessary for it to happen.
Yes, right.
And when you have like a plan, it actually restricts you from growth, it restricts you from adaptation and flexibility and finding flow and all these things, right? That are necessary, which is this fluidity of how energies and things come in place in the universe.
Right. And even if, let's say you don't believe in energies and the universe and all of that, even just from a purely logical standpoint, you can't know all the things before you do it, before you walk that path. Like you can't plan it all out. And if you try to, you're going to be stuck at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the experiences. Like once you start to walk that path, and by walking that path, it might mean, going to like a networking event or going to a class. And then maybe at that class, you meet someone who has a similar interest. And that leads you to something else, leads you to something else.
Yes.
Right.
Like me moving to New York wasn't a plan, but it's only because I did that put me into spaces with people that have become my allies, right? So it's exactly, that's what happens.
Rachna, where can people find you?
Well, you could come to my Instagram. That's a great place just to connect with me. I'm happy to connect with people and I really love to. I perform all over in New York, definitely, fairly regularly. And Instagram is the best place to find out about that. Yeah. You could also go to my website and could contact me if you're looking for anything.
Yeah, even a drop-in class.
Even a drop-in class. I was just going to say, yes, I teach in Manhattan mostly, and anyone is welcome and all are welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for today.
Yeah, it was fun.
Our
It was just like our first date.
Yeah, it went from day to night, just like
oh my gosh,
our first time meeting.
Night out.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you for joining us on Living with Dr. Monica Shaw, where we discuss different ways of living our lives and finding fulfillment in a world that often pushes one. I hope this series gives you more confidence in creating and living a life that fits you, not the mold. If you like what you heard and you're ready to feel seen, inspired, and supported in building your path, don't forget to hit subscribe. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and grow a community of people who are redefining what living means together. So please share and leave us a rating or review. You can also watch on our YouTube channel at Dr. Monica Shaw and find episode notes and bonus content at www.drmonicashaw.com. Finally, follow me on Instagram at Dr. Monica Shaw for more inspiration and resources. Until next time, keep living your unique life, because no matter what path we're on, it's all just living, and there's more than one way to do it.
It's my first
in-person one. So this would be weird if we look at the camera.
Yeah. We're just going to look at each other, but I feel like are we really close?
Yeah, we might be too close.
Because of the microphones, right? Or in general. Can we I feel like we can do this.
I think we can, yeah.
Yeah.
But do we ever look at the camera? That seems weird because it's a talk show.
Yeah. No, I think we could kind of just like, if you're
then
thinking, then you can kind of like look over here.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. But don't be like talking to the camera.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be weird.
That would be weird.
I feel like
it's not a talk show.
Yeah, it's not a talk show. And when we met to hang out months later, sessions lasted for hours. It went from day into night. And we talked about so many different things. We talked about right from the go, you know? Wait, is that a saying? Is that a saying? From the go?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a saying.
Okay. I think I'm gonna start
again.